You're 23, and you're watching someone else get rich. The casino floor hums with 800 slot machines. Every spin, the house keeps between 2 and 15% of what goes in. Doesn't sound like much until you multiply it by 1,000 spins an hour. You stand there at the edge of the floor doing math in your head. Level 1, the card room. You don't start with a casino. Nobody starts with a casino. You start with a poker room. A poker room is one of the cheapest ways into the gambling business. You're not the player. You're the house. You rent the table and take a cut of every pot. Every hand, the house rakes 3 to 5%, capped at around $5. One table, 8 hours a day, 50 hands an hour, about $400 in rake. 4 tables, $1,600 a day. In California or Washington, where card rooms are legal, rent runs $8,000 to $15,000 a month. Add dealers, a floorman, chips, and basic security, and your monthly costs hit $25,000. 4 tables running 6 days a week gives you roughly $38,000 in rake per month. After expenses, you're clearing about $13,000. It's not glamorous. Fluorescent lights, the same regulars every Tuesday, coffee that's been sitting since noon. But you're learning the only lesson that matters. Money isn't in the playing, it's in owning the game. 6 months in, the bankroll sits at around $60,000. The hidden risk here is your player pool. Poker is a skill game. The bad players lose money and eventually stop showing up. If the regulars dry up and there's no tourist traffic to replace them, the rake disappears overnight. You need constant new blood, and you're already thinking about the next level. Level 2, the license. To run real casino games, you need government permission. In Nevada, a full unrestricted gaming license costs over $500,000 in state fees before you open your doors. The background investigation takes 2 to 3 years. They go through every bank account, every business relationship, every loan you've taken going back a decade. You have to disclose everything, every investor, every debt, the source of every dollar used to capitalize the business. One gap in that disclosure, one undisclosed relationship, and the application is dead. Some operators go a different route, tribal gaming. Federally recognized tribes can operate casinos on their land under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act of 1988. The tribal gaming industry does about $40 billion a year in the United States. You sign a management contract, you bring capital and operational expertise, the tribe retains sovereignty and takes a cut. The tribal share is typically 25 to 40% of net gaming revenue. Your management fee sits at 15 to 30% on top of that. On a small property doing $5 million a year in revenue, that's $750,000 to $1.5 million in fees going to you. The trade-off is that you don't own the land, the building, or the license. If the tribe walks away from the contract, so do you. The bankroll is now thin, mostly consumed by legal bills and the application process. The hidden risk is that compliance is everything. One problem in your financial history and the license never comes. Level 3, the edge. Now you're licensed, operating, and you understand the math that makes this business unlike anything else. The house edge isn't a trick. It's a guaranteed mathematical advantage baked into the rules of every game. American roulette has 38 numbered slots. A single number bet pays 35 to 1. The house keeps 0 and double 0, which works out to 5.26% of every dollar wagered. That edge is fixed. No skill, no system, no lucky streak changes it. Blackjack's edge is tighter, about 0.5% against a player using perfect basic strategy. But most people don't use perfect strategy. So the real house edge at the table runs 2 to 3%. Baccarat runs about 1% on the banker bet. Sounds tiny. At high volumes, 1% is enormous. Slots are where the biggest revenue lives. You set the payback percentage. On most floors, the house keeps between 2 and 15% of every dollar played. You run your floor at an average hold of 8%. $2 million in handle per month generates $160,000 in gross gaming revenue. Operating costs, labor, utilities, maintenance run about 60% of that. You're clearing $64,000 a month. The bankroll is growing. You're past $400,000. The hidden risk at this level is short-term variance. The math is guaranteed over millions of rounds, not over a single weekend. Or on the bad luck at one baccarat table can erase a week of slot profits in a few hours. You need enough cash reserve to absorb the swings while the long run catches up. Level 4, the machine. Slot to the backbone of almost every casino in the United States. In most commercial properties, they generate 60 to 80% of total gaming revenue. A single dollar denomination slot machine earns between $75,000 and $300,000 per year. Quarter machines bring in less per spin but still move serious volume. You optimize the floor constantly. Higher denomination machines, faster spin cycles, more handle per square foot. Buying machines outright costs $8,000 to $20,000 each. You can lease instead, giving the manufacturer 20 to 30% of the take. Leasing saves upfront capital but costs more over the life of the machine. 100 machines averaging $150,000 per year equals $15 million in annual slot revenue. After the manufacturer's cut, you keep $10.5 million. Strip out labor and overhead, and you're looking at roughly $6 million in EBITDA from slots alone. The operation now needs a real finance team and a compliance department. The hidden risk is online gambling. Legal mobile and online casinos are capturing your low-frequency customers one by one. They play at midnight from their couch instead of driving to you. Walk-in traffic is down 7% year over year at properties across the industry. You compensate with promotions and free play credits, which eats into the margin. Level 5. The whale. Everything you built so far is baseline revenue. The real upside is in one kind of player. A whale, in casino terms, is someone betting $5,000 to $50,000 per hand. One whale at a baccarat table for 10 hours generates more expected revenue than your whole slot floor on a slow Tuesday. Here's the math. 1% house edge, $10,000 bets, 100 hands per hour. That's $100,000 in expected player losses per hour. You don't wait for those players to find you. You go find them. Casinos build international VIP development teams, especially targeting wealthy players across Asia and Latin America. You fly them in first class, sometimes private. You put them in a penthouse suite. You assign a personal host for the entire stay. A full VIP weekend with flights, rooms, food, and entertainment runs you $50,000 to $100,000. That sounds like a lot until the player sits down and loses $400,000 before Sunday morning. Comps are calculated to the decimal. You return 30 to 40% of a player's expected loss in perks. A player expected to lose $20,000 gets $8,000 in free rooms and meals. Your theoretical margin on that visit is still $12,000. The risk in the whale program is pure variance. A player running hot can walk out with $2 million of your money. You need deep reserves, a credit operation that extends markers to qualified players, and a collections team. Casino markers are legal debt instruments. In Nevada, defaulting on a marker is a criminal offense. The property is now doing $50 million a year in revenue, and the operation is genuinely complex. Level 6. The expansion. One property feels like leaving money on the table. You want a second market, then a third. A mid-sized regional casino costs $200 to $500 million to build from the ground up. Nobody has that in cash, so you borrow it. You issue high-yield bonds and take term loans from a bank syndicate. Annual debt service on a $200 million build runs $15 to $20 million a year. When revenue is growing and interest rates are cooperating, that's manageable. Revenue climbs to $120 million. EBITDA hits $35 million. Sounds solid. But annual debt payments are $28 million. Free cash flow is $7 million on a $200 million investment. The cushion is much thinner than the revenue number makes it look. You add a hotel tower anyway, a spa, a concert arena. Every addition gets financed. The debt stack grows with every ribbon cutting. The hidden risk has shifted in nature. It's no longer about a bad weekend at the baccarat table. It's about a fixed obligation that doesn't move no matter what happens to revenue. Any real shock to the top line, and you can't cover the bottom line. Level 7. The Empire. 3 properties. Revenue north of $200 million a year. You have 400,000 rated players in your database. Each one has a profile, game preference, average bet size, visit frequency, expected annual loss. That database is worth more than the gaming equipment. You market to it constantly. Direct mail, targeted free play offers, email campaigns tuned by play history. Every dollar of free play you send out brings back $3 to $4 in actual wagering. The loyalty program is the retention engine. Players earn points on every dollar wagered and redeem them for hotel stays, meals, and show tickets. It keeps them in the building longer. Longer stays mean more handle. You're now large enough to attract institutional money. A private equity firm makes an approach. They see stable cash flows, a strong regional brand, and a real estate portfolio with REIT potential. The company is valued at $500 million. You take some money off the table. On paper, it's a long way from that fluorescent-lit card room. But you're carrying $400 million in long-term debt. EBITDA is $60 million. Leverage is 60.5 times earnings. Wall Street calls that B- credit, one notch above junk. One bad year threatens the whole structure. The business stopped being about gambling a while ago. Now it's about servicing debt while keeping enough customers through the door to stay current. You're not really a casino owner anymore. You're a debt instrument with a gaming license. Level 8. The Reckoning. A new casino opens 40 miles from your flagship. A neighboring state passed gaming expansion legislation 3 years ago, and the bill just finished. Your regional market now has a second option, and the new place is newer and shinier. Customers who used to drive an hour to you now drive 20 minutes to them. Revenue at your flagship drops 11% in year 1. Company-wide EBITDA falls from $60 million to $41 million. Debt service hasn't moved. Still $28 million per year. Free cash flow collapses from $22 million to $13 million. You cut staff. You reduce the promotional budget. Cutting promotions drives more players to the competition. Revenue falls another 8% the following year. You miss a debt covenant. The bank calls your restructuring clause. A team of outside advisors shows up in your conference room with laptops and term sheets. You hire your own restructuring counsel. Chapter 11 is filed. The casinos stay open. The machines still spin. The dealers still deal, but the company is now in bankruptcy court. A judge and a creditor committee control the strategic decisions. This is not a rare outcome. It's almost the template for this industry at scale. Trump hotels and casino resorts went bankrupt 4 separate times between 1991 and 2009. Station casinos filed in 2009. Caesars Entertainment filed in 2015, carrying $18 billion in debt. The debt structure that lets you build empires is the same structure that dismantles them. High leverage, thin free cash flow, and a market that can always produce a new competitor with a fresh license. You emerge from restructuring as a small minority shareholder in what used to be entirely your company. The equity got wiped. The bondholders own it now. You sign a consulting agreement and a 5-year non-compete. You shake hands, you walk out, and you don't look back at the floor. The house always wins, just not always for the house you built. If this one stayed with you, hit like and subscribe.